بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Inshallah, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we'll finish the 19th juz of the Quran, and inshallah tomorrow we'll finish the 20th juz and be done with 2/3 of the Quran. In the 19th juz, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed the remainder of Surah Al-Furqan, which began in the 18th juz. He has placed Surah Al-Shu'ara as well as Surah Al-Naml. So two of these surahs, Furqan and Shu'ara, Furqan meaning the criterion, the divider, the decider between truth and falsehood. Shu'ara meaning the poets, have a key theme between them, and that is both of them were revealed in Mecca. And they were revealed in order to help the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims deal with the challenges they were facing in Mecca. In particular, Surah Al-Shu'ara, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He details the different stories of different prophets in order to comfort the Prophet ﷺ in his mission. Essentially to tell him that, O Muhammad, you are not the first to be rejected by his people. There were prophets before you that were rejected by their people. That you are not the first to have people demand miracles of you. But in fact, the prophets of previous were also asked about miracles. And when they delivered the miracles, the people still denied. And so, a few nights ago we talked a little bit about in the 15th juz why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends miracles and who is convinced by miracles. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives these miracles, but He has a sunnah, a way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to miracles. What is that way? The example is in the camel of Salih and the different nations that came before. What is that sunnah? It is that after Allah gives a miracle, if people still deny the Prophet, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroys those people. And so if you get to see a miracle with your eyes and then you deny as a people, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroys you. And that's why in Surah Al-Shu'ara you'll hear the words, Inna fi dhalika la-ayah, Inna fi dhalika la-ayah, Inna fi dhalika la-ayah. That indeed in that, meaning in the story of these people, there is a sign. وَمَا كَانَ أَكْثَرُهُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. But most of them, they don't become believers. وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الرَّحِيمُ. Indeed, your Lord is Al-Aziz. He doesn't need anyone. Ar-Rahim, the most merciful, over and over again. In the story of Nuh, in the story of Musa, in the story of Hud, Salih, Shu'aib, Lut, all of them are there. But to pick a specific set of ayahs, I'm going to pick ayah number 83 and onwards. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He speaks about Ibrahim alayhi salam in these ayahs. And He gives details in these ayahs that are nowhere else in the Quran. If you go to Surah Maryam, you find some things that are similar, but the level of detail is nowhere like it is in this surah in terms of what Ibrahim is saying. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he's calling his people publicly, but they deny him and they eventually expel him. And so Ibrahim, he begins praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He begins making dua. He begins by saying, الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينَ. That my Lord is the one who created me and He is the one that guides me. وَالَّذِي هُوَ يُطْعِمُنِي وَيَسْقِينَ. He is the one that feeds me and He's the one that gives me drink. وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينَ. When I get sick, He is the one that cures me. وَالَّذِي يُمِيتُنِي ثُمَّ يُحْيِينَ. That He is the one that gives death, He is the one that gives life. وَالَّذِي أَطْمَعُ أَن يَغْفِرَ لِي خَطِيئَتِي يَوْمَ الدِّينِ. That He is the one that I seek forgiveness from. He's the one that forgives my sins. Then Ibrahim alayhi salam, he says something very interesting. He says, Rabbi habli hukman wa alhiqni bis salihin. And before I tell you what exact dua he's saying, I want you to understand that Ibrahim, he has a sunnah. What is the sunnah of Ibrahim? That you do good deeds first and then you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibrahim builds the Kaaba and then he makes dua. In the same exact way, he makes da'wah to his people and then he makes dua. And he says, Oh my Lord, grant for me hukma. Hukma means leadership, power, control. But over here, it actually means wisdom. Meaning, oh Allah, grant me wisdom. وَأَلْحِقْنِي بِالصَّالِحِينَ, and attach me to the righteous people. And this word hukma, this word wisdom, is the highest level, the highest epitome of wisdom. Now you might be wondering, why does Ibrahim need wisdom? He's already a prophet. But he's asking for wisdom so that he can understand why he's doing these things. He can understand the purpose of his deen, the purpose of his worship, further clarity. But Ibrahim is smart. He knows that knowledge and wisdom alone is not enough. وَأَلْحِقْنِي بِالصَّالِحِينَ, that allow me to be from those that are from the righteous. Because there's tons of people that know a lot of facts and details and ayat and hadith and Quran, but there's very few people that act upon it. And so Ibrahim is saying that make me from those that act upon it. Make me from that actual category. And then on top of it, Ibrahim, he says, وَاجْعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِينَ, that, oh Allah, make my mention, make my honorable mention in the later generations, meaning our generations and the generations that come after, right? Let people remember me as a good leader. That's why every single day, what do you say? Allahumma salli ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim, right? And so he makes this dua and Allah accepts this dua. وَاجْعَلْنِي مِنْ وَرَثَةِ جَنَّةِ النَّعِيمِ, that, oh Allah, make me from the inheritors of Jannah. Now, why does he say, oh Allah, make me from the inheritors of Jannah? Why doesn't he say, oh Allah, give me Jannah? Because the reality is that just like your kids inherit money from you without having to do anything, you and me inherit Jannah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His mercy. So we act, we do good deeds, right? We're not like the Christians. We do all the work, but at the same time, it's Allah's mercy that gives us Jannah. And so that's why even in his dua, even in the specific words, Ibrahim is watching how he's speaking. وَاغْفِرْ لِأَبِي إِنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الضَّالِّينَ, that forgive my father, for indeed he is from those that are astray. And eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stops him from making dua for his father. وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ, don't disgrace me on the day in which people are risen again. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ, on a day in which money, your wealth, your houses, your car, your children will not benefit you. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, only someone who comes to Allah with a clean heart. That's what will benefit you. And so what does he make dua for? Number one, knowledge, hukmah, wisdom. Number two is to be with the righteous, to be in the environment, to be with the good people, to do the good deeds. Number three, on top of that, leave a legacy. Let people remember me after I die. Number four, he asks for Jannah. Number five, he makes dua for his family. And number six, he asks that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not disgrace him on the day of judgment, because many people will come with a lot of accolades, but their hearts won't be pure, and so they'll be disgraced. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue to allow us to be inspired by the du'as of all the prophets and all of the anbiya, and to make dua that they made dua, and to accept our du'as just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted their du'as. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka.